Mr. Chairman, Deputy Assistant Secretary Cease, in your testimony, you emphasized the importance of coal for America's economic security. In my Colorado district, the city of Pueblo has a fully functional coal-fired unit that faces early retirement because, in my view, of short-sighted government policy. This relates and raises serious concerns about reliability, affordability, and also the ability to meet growing demand. From your perspective, what are the long-term national security and economic consequences of taking these kinds of plants, like the Comanche unit in Pueblo, offline early?
I think it's a huge problem, Congressman, because coal, as we've discussed, provides communities like yours with reliable and affordable baseload power. And if we are decreasing existing baseload power, then we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage relative to others on the national stage. The point that I think most of us agree on is that there will be an extreme growth in energy demand over the coming years. And the last thing we can afford to do, if we're interested in that, to be quite honest, even if we're not interested in pursuing that AI arms race, the last thing that we can afford to do is to shut down ongoing, sustainable, baseload, affordable power for communities like yours.
Are intermittent resources like wind and solar able to meet the load demands consistently that AI and other data centers require in terms of electric demand on the grid?
No, sir.
And can you talk to us about the levelized cost of energy? Do you have any information you might be able to provide us about when we talk about the cost of various resource mixes, how baseload generation would compare to coal or natural gas versus other resources that are not always on 24/7 in terms of transmission costs, in terms of backup costs, battery costs, peaking demands, things like that?
Yes, sir. So it is a bit nuanced and regional, depending on which part of the country you're talking about, for all the obvious reasons, different characteristics of energy supply. And so it can be a detailed conversation, but the bottom line that really is not up for debate that you point out, Congressman, is that because wind and solar are not baseload, they're intermittent, and because they need battery backup, in the best case that isn't even currently available, then you have to duplicate on the grid with backup baseload power. So the levelized cost of energy has, like many things, become a point of contention, but there is no debate that when it comes to affordable power, coal and natural gas lead the pack, and that intermittent energy sources, for the reasons that you mentioned, are at the back. And oftentimes, Congressman, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times as expensive as coal and natural gas.
Thank you for that. One other thing I wanted to point out is that wind and solar depend on imports of rare earths, polysilicon, and critical minerals, much of which comes from China, and I'm not sure that dependency is necessarily factored into the arguments about cost and the cheapness of renewables. Mr. Cease, is an energy source cheap if it makes us dependent on adversaries for supply chains?
No, sir. And if I might, I think there are a lot of circumstances that aren't introduced into this debate. You mentioned